What if one of the Jedi's greatest symbol of restraint was actually meant to embrace the dark? What if the Order's most loyal servant, the one they called the perfect Jedi, was not only miscast in the Jedi Order, but misused as well? Obi-Wan Kenobi is remembered as the model of Jedi discipline, calm, controlled, detached. But beneath that mask was something else. Buried passion, repressed desire, tactical brilliance, cold calculation, and a lifetime of unspoken wounds. This is not a theory. This is the truth hiding in plain sight. Obi-Wan was never at his strongest when acting as a Jedi. He was at his most effective when he stepped outside their code, when he manipulated, when he deceived, when he allowed emotion to guide his judgment. In this lesson, we will examine the cracks in his Jedi facade and reveal why Obi-Wan Kenobi would have risen higher, stood stronger, and seen farther, had he embraced the philosophy of the Sith, not to destroy, but to become. Part 1, The Silent Betrayal of Self. Obi-Wan mastered control, but only by burying who he truly was. He loved Satine Kryze, the Duchess of Mandalore, with the kind of depth the Jedi feared. And when she offered him a life away from the Order, he refused. Not because he didn't want it, but because he feared what it would mean to choose himself. The Sith Code says, "Through passion, I gain strength." Obi-Wan had passion, but instead of gaining strength from it, he turned it into silence, into denial. He obeyed the Jedi Council, even when he disagreed with their direction. He followed orders during the Clone Wars that contradicted peacekeeping values, and he carried the weight of his doubts with quiet suffering, never questioning, only enduring. The Sith would not have silenced that voice. They would have taught him to use it, to turn that inner conflict into clarity, that pain into focus, that love into power. By pretending his feelings did not exist, Obi-Wan betrayed the very parts of himself that could have made him whole. Part 2, A Master Who Fed the Fall. Anakin Skywalker didn't fall in spite of Obi-Wan. In part, he fell due to many things Obi-Wan did wrong. Obi-Wan was more than a teacher. He was a brother, a father figure, a moral anchor, the one person Anakin trusted enough to bear his frustrations to. But Obi-Wan never listened to the storm underneath. Instead of helping Anakin integrate his fears, attachments, and ambitions, he tried to smother them. He told him to be mindful of his thoughts, to let go of everything he feared to lose, to suppress, to detach, to conform. But Anakin wasn't built for detachment. He was fire, raw, untamed, desperate to protect the people he loved. And Obi-Wan, trying to shape him into the image of the perfect Jedi, tried to make that fire into water, tried to make him something he could never truly be. Obi-Wan was not blind. He saw the possessiveness in Anakin's heart, the anger in his voice, the fear of losing control. He watched it grow with each battle, each mission, each whispered doubt about the Jedi Council. But instead of guiding him through it, he stayed silent, because silence is what the Jedi taught. They believed that if a shadow is ignored, it will vanish. But darkness doesn't vanish. It waits. A Sith Lord in Obi-Wan's place would have done the opposite. They would have recognized the hunger in Anakin not as a flaw, but as potential. They would have taught him to harness it, to wield his fear rather than drown in it, to make it his blade instead of his burden. When Anakin began to crumble under the weight of visions of Padmé's death, Obi-Wan was not there with clarity. He was not there with a plan. He gave him rules, not understanding. Cold comfort from a man who had never faced his own attachments honestly. And when it came time to confront him on Mustafar, Obi-Wan did not lead with strategy or compassion. He came with the resolve to end him, to destroy what he could have saved. He said, "I will do what I must, not to heal, not to reach him, but to eliminate him." That is the difference between a Jedi and a Sith. A Sith would have seen the storm in Anakin and moved through it with him. Obi-Wan only feared it, and in doing so, fed it. Part 3. The Dark Deeds of Obi-Wan. Let's strip away the Jedi mythology. Obi-Wan was a warrior, a spy, a killer when needed. He led clone battalions into war, gave orders that caused mass casualties, and played political games to protect the Jedi's influence. He faked his death to infiltrate criminal syndicates. He lied to allies. He weaponized trust. None of this was serene. It was ruthless and effective. Why do we praise these actions when done by a Jedi, but call them evil when done by a Sith? Obi-Wan showed us he was capable of using deception, manipulation, and violence when the stakes demanded it. But he always did so with guilt. He never owned his actions as reflections of his truth. He let the Jedi define what was right, even as they sent children to war, failed to act against Sidious, and lost control of the galaxy. The Sith would have handed him a mirror and asked, "Why not make peace with what you already are?" Imagine an Obi-Wan unchained, not twisted by rage, not seduced by corruption, but driven by clarity, passion, and a full acceptance of who he is. Imagine if he had told Satine he loved her and meant it without shame. Imagine if he had told Anakin, "Yes, you are afraid. Good. Now let's use it." Imagine if he had said to the Council, "Your way is failing, and I will choose a better path." That version of Obi-Wan would have been a Sith, not in cruelty, but in conviction, not in destruction, but in evolution. He would have protected what mattered by any means necessary. He would have ruled with wisdom, not dogma. And perhaps, he would have saved the very galaxy the Jedi lost. The Jedi called him the ideal. But what if those ideals instead cost him everything? If Obi-Wan had allowed himself to feel, if he had questioned the failures of the Jedi Council, if he had embraced the fire within instead of extinguishing it, he may have found a deeper power, one not rooted in denial, but in truth. He could have been a stronger master to Anakin. He could have shaped destiny, not suffered it. So I ask you, would Obi-Wan Kenobi have been greater as a Sith? If this holocron resonates with you, please like and subscribe so I can bring you more powerful Sith lessons.